It's not every day that the word budget and reference are used in the same sentence when describing anything in hi-fi, and yet that is what we are talking about today as we review Elac's debut reference bookshelf loudspeakers. Let's get into it. Elac's debut line of loudspeakers redefined value for money when they were released several years ago, and they quickly became darlings in the industry, both among consumers as well as the AV press. But seeing room for improvement, lead designer Andrew Jones set about creating the debut reference, and a lot of people are curious. Is the debut reference worth upgrading to over the existing debut 2.0 series? In terms of construction, there is no denying that the reference are a step above the debut 2.0s, as they should be because Elac is asking more than double the 2's price. And you get to have your reference speakers in a choice of two finishes. We went with white, although white is somewhat misleading in my opinion, as there are three distinct colors in the white finish. First, you have the magnetic heather gray grille, then the white front baffle, and then a light oak backside. And I love it. It actually dresses up this speaker and makes it stand out among the competition. I especially love the mid-century vibes that it gives me here. Now remove the magnetic grille and you will find the speaker's 1-inch cloth dome tweeter, which is sitting behind a new grille design for improved high frequency response. Below that is a 6.5-inch mid-bass driver, below which is a front firing port. Now Elac is choosing to call this port their dual flared vent. It's a port. Now, we don't normally talk about specs on this channel, but earlier I did mention that the reference had an improved high frequency response over the debut 2.0. And I did this because Elac thought to call it out. Yet on paper, the debut reference and debut 2.0 speakers are nearly identical. But as we are finding out, specs don't often tell the whole story when it comes to loudspeakers. But for those of you that are curious, here they are. With the debut reference, Elac has definitely stepped up their style game, and while style does not equal performance, it's hard enough being a bookshelf loudspeaker in 2020, and the debut reference looking the way that it does definitely puts it a step or two above the competition. In terms of sound, there is no denying that the debut reference is an Andrew Jones design through and through. For those of you who don't know who Andrew Jones is, he is a speaker designer who has built a reputation for making high-end obtainable for the everyman and woman. He did this while at Pioneer and TAD and now Elac. And the debut reference is a very balanced loudspeaker. I'm not going to call it neutral, but it is balanced. Though at higher volumes, some of that smoothness in ease is lost, but we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Now, having lived with the debut reference for several months, I've gotten a pretty good feel for what they sound like, but let's start at the bottom and work our way up. The bass is incredibly well dampened and surprisingly deep. There's a good amount of texture and detail, though speed and impact seems to be a little bit amplifier dependent. Still, the front-facing port does allow for some placement flexibility here, though I have found that the references still prefer a little bit of room between themselves and your front wall, but on a whole, bass is solid, if not just a little bit polite. The mid-range is ever so slightly lean in weight, but not cool in tone, which makes it a great match for a wide range of source material. And it excels at dialogue, especially in a 2.0 or 2.1 home theater situation where it has all the requisite detail and inflection that you would want for vocals without a lot of cabinet coloration. In terms of high frequencies, the reference is good, maybe even better than average, but it's not great. There is a surprising amount of top-end shimmer with this tweeter, considering it's a fabric dome design, but it is prone to a fair amount of sibilance, even at moderate volumes, never mind loud ones. It doesn't become fatiguing or glaring, but it isn't wholly natural either. Still, it is prone to a bit of fizz, and this is apparent with lesser recordings, but on a whole, it is balanced with the rest of the loudspeaker. It's just that the tweeter seems to be a little bit more picky in comparison. Dispersion is good, center imaging is strong. I'm not going to say that it's locked in granite, but the speakers do throw a pretty convincing phantom center when watching movies. Now, vocalists are a step or two in front of the speaker's front baffles. Soundstage definitely favors depth over width, but the detail within said soundstage is incredibly clean and well detailed. Which brings us to dynamics. Now, the reference is a speaker that likes a fair amount of power. I don't know why Andrew's designs continue to be so hungry, but in my experience, in order to get the most out of his speakers, you either have to turn them up or bring a fair amount of power to the party. At lower volumes, the reference speaker does sound a little bit dull, but turn things up and it does spring to life. However, at higher volumes, the speaker can become a bit nasally in the high frequencies and a little one note in the bass department. So this is definitely a loudspeaker that has a bit of a butter zone. Now, like I said earlier, Andrew Jones's designs like a better amp. And when you bring a better amp to the party, the bass on the reference bookshelf loudspeakers firms up and retains its character without needing to turn it up and thus overdrive the tweeter. See where I'm going with this? For example, the Elacs sounded okay through our $500 Sony 1080 receiver, but they sounded better through the Yamaha 3080, as they should, as that receiver's just under $2,000. Now, neither one really solved the volume issue, but the Yamaha did have better control over that mid-bass driver down low. Now, pairing this speaker with our name Unity Atom at just over $3,000, and they suddenly became one of the better affordable loudspeakers that we have in-house. So the reference bookshelves are very capable performers. They just may require a little bit more of an investment somewhere else in your signal chain than maybe you were planning on or thought you could get away with. Now, one of the nice things about this speaker system is that it can pull double duty as a basic home theater because Elac does offer a matching center as well as a tower. Now, there is no matching subwoofer. Elac does make subwoofers, but there's none in their product lineup that match the look and feel of the reference bookshelves. So that's a little bit of a letdown here. Now, we paired ours with the SVS SB1000, and when we did that, we found that it opened these speakers up quite a bit. And dynamically, they didn't seem to have to be driven as hard in order to come to life. So it's something to consider even in two-channel listening, but especially with home theater use. The reference center channel speaker is a good match for the bookshelves, but not a great one. And this is partially due to the fact that it has dual mid-bass drivers. So dialogue is going to be a little bit fuller and richer, not to mention more directional, but I have to imagine that the center is probably a better match to the reference towers, in which case you're going to want to move your bookshelves to the back of your system as they will work as surrounds. Overall, I do like the reference bookshelf loudspeakers from Elac. I think they're visually stunning, and when you pair them with the right electronics, they more than hold their own. But they're not perfect, and there are a few drawbacks that you have to be aware of. The biggest drawback that I see to the reference bookshelf loudspeakers is actually their price. Because at just under $600 a pair, these are arguably aimed at a budget-conscious consumer. But I do think that you are going to have a harder time building a budget system around them. While conventional wisdom may tell you that a $600 pair of loudspeakers can be easily paired with a $300 or $400 integrated with good results, I think you may actually be disappointed if you apply that logic here. In fact, I would argue that let the debut reference bookshelf loudspeakers be the cheapest part of your system. I very much appreciated their performance when using higher end gear like our name Unity Atom, and I even appreciated them using the marginally more affordable Musical Fidelity M3 integrated. But the Musical Fidelity is 3 times the cost of these speakers. So that's why I say, while you can technically drive them with budget gear to get the most out of them and to hear what all the fuss is about, I think you're actually going to have to shop a little bit more upmarket as it relates to your electronics. Now, I know earlier in this review, I talked all about how great I thought the reference bookshelves looked, and I still stand by that comment, but I do wish the magnetic grille covered the entire of the front fascia. I think just seeing that slot port and the logo the way that it is just sort of slapped on there makes the speaker look a little bit cheaper than it really is. Lastly, with respect to downsides, these are billed as bookshelf loudspeakers, but you're not going to place them in a bookshelf. They're not going to sound their best. And because they are a little bit larger and heavier, they are going to need some pretty substantial stands, and that is an added investment. So we're moving away ever so slightly from their budget, target. Now, we used stands from Kanto Audio as well as Solid Steel, both of which I will link to down in the description below, but do understand that these things add to the total cost of ownership when considering the reference bookshelf loudspeakers. In terms of comparable loudspeakers, the reference speakers are knocking on the door of the Klipsch 600M. I consider these two speakers very similar in many respects, save for one. While the 600Ms can sound high-end the more you treat them as such, they do not require you to do so and therefore give you more with less. Another loudspeaker that I can see the reference bookshelf being compared to is the SVS Ultra bookshelf line. They have very similar sonic characteristics, save for one. I do find the Ultra bookshelf loudspeakers to be a little bit more forward and dynamic in their presentation in comparison to the reference bookshelf loudspeakers. But if you are considering the Elac reference speakers for home theater use, other speakers that you may also shop or consider, apart from SVS, the entire Ultra line is very home theater centric, but you may want to take a look at Q Acoustics' new 3030-3050i line, both of which are available in complete home theater packages for well under $2,000, and I will link to those down in the description below. And lastly, because I know you're going to ask, how do these compare to our reference Klipsch Heresy Mark IVs? The truth is, they don't. They don't. While these are capable loudspeakers at their price point, and maybe even a few ticks above at $750 to say $800, they are not comparable to the Klipsch Heresy Mark IVs. And that's okay, because I absolutely dig what Andrew Jones and his team are doing over there with the Elac brand, and I think they are giving budget-oriented enthusiasts reason to celebrate. And I totally get why you guys have been hounding me for months to review these speakers. So while they are more expensive than the Debut 2.0 series, I think they are worth the upgrade, and as long as you pair them with the right amplifier, you won't be disappointed. And before you go, I have a question. How much should you budget for loudspeakers in comparison to the rest of your system? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Ring the bell so that you are notified when new videos come out. And if you're looking for ways to support this channel, using the links that we leave you down below does go a long way in helping us out. If you're looking for another way, you may consider becoming a member. You can click join down by subscribe. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and remember, the only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next video. Bye. That was terrible.
It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible.
I just didn't like it. I know these are your opinions, but they don't reflect my opinion. So let's workshop it. You're terrible. It's so hard. You're terrible. You're over here just... I promised I wouldn't interrupt him, but I'm totally interrupting him right now.
I'm not interrupting you.
Your face contorted into 17 different knots just then about your displeasure on how I botched that take.
Well, I'm sorry.
But I'm well aware that that is what I just did.
Just really wish you hadn't sucked so bad then.
You're starting to feel it. You're starting to feel it like I do.
I'm so, you know what it is? I'm tired of being in this house.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted a different view.
Yeah.
I would even go to the Domain. Like, I miss...
Yeah, I just want someone else to make me a drink.
Yeah.
I want someone else to make me a drink, and I want someone to just bring me a bowl of chips for no reason, just for existing. Here's your existing chips. And your free salsa. Guacamole is always going to be extra, like $900 extra. But we will bring you all of the chips and salsa that you want.